Welcome back, guys and girls. This is the Rogue Painter bringing you another episode of Mortal Realms Monday. So this week we didn't get any models with our issue, which was issue 13. Instead we got 2 pots of paint and a new brush. So with that being the case, I've decided to do another Stormhost variant. This time focusing on the Celestial Vindicators. So, without further ado, let's have a look at painting these guys. Okay, so I've gone ahead and primed the model white here, and I am now going to apply a base coat of Macragge blue to all of the armour areas. So I'll just speed the video up for this while I apply the paint to these areas, and we can go ahead and I can explain the individual areas that this paint will be applied to. So you can see I'm just applying it to the right leg here, or the left leg as we are looking at the model. This is slightly thinned down paint, so we can get a couple of thin layers on there. It's always better to thin your paints down. As I always say, just so you can get a few nice thin even layers without any brush strokes showing, and also that way you won't clog up any fine details, small details and stuff. So the areas to apply is the legs and the visible foot here, the back and lower half back area of this particular model. So basically anywhere on the armour plating, including fitting just under the sides here. The reason I've gone for the Macragge blue is I feel that it will give it a nice undertone to the green that or the Sotek green that we're going to apply over the top of this. Black I feel may have been too dark and would have darkened it up, and the white was definitely too light. So also you can see that I've applied it to the hand here and the elbow guard, but I'm leaving the padded area, the gauntlet part of the hand, white, as that is going to be painted black, as they have black leather over that cuff area. You can also see just behind the knee there that I've left that white as well, as again that's another area of black. Also we're painting the head here, but leaving out the halo. The halo itself will be gold, and I'm also going down into the collar, just in front and behind the head, and also the back collar here. Now I couldn't find any great references on the weapons exactly, but I felt that I wanted to pull a little bit of that turquoise look, or the armour look, through onto the weapon here. So I'm applying the blue here as well. That's also going to be the same colour as the armour, just to pull that colour scheme together. The head of the hammer itself is going to be silver, and then we'll have gold trim around the pauldrons and across the halo. Okay, so once all the blue is done, I'm now going to apply Abaddon Black to any of the areas that I want to be gold, and obviously any areas that are going to be black. So I've chosen for the inside of the robe to be black, and in the reference material that I had in the magazine that we're collecting, it shows that the front tabard and the back hood area are also black, as well as the cuffs around the wrist cuffs. So again, a couple of thin layers, doesn't take a lot of black. I'm just applying this to those areas. I've also going to do the anywhere that would be silver in black as well, so that's just the head of the hammer there as well. And I do believe the front, the pendant charm thing that is being held along the lower tabard, and also the leathery straps across the middle chest area. I paint them black, as although they're going to be red, I want them to have a darker base behind them than we'll get with painting red over white. I wanted the under trim of all of my robes to be the colour of the inside rather than the outside, so all along the underside of the robe there I painted that up black as well, and the tabard I decided to have that as just black, both inside and out, so the fold there is black as well. So I'll go ahead and skip past the rest of the painting of the black areas, and we'll be back in just a bit. Right, so once all that's done, we're going to apply a base of Mephiston red over the lower robe area here, all on the outside of it, as well as the handle for the mace or hammer, whatever it is, and also the small leathery section that she has just under the upper part of her tabard. If you're working on the shield at the same time as doing this, I did have the shield removed for ease of access behind where the shield would be, but I am painting it off camera at the same time. There's a small seal on there that I just did in red, the exact same method that I did with this. Pretty much all the methods on the shield are exactly the same as I do on the main model. So again, using thin down paints here to apply a couple of layers, obviously letting each layer fully dry before going back over. And I'm not too worried about getting onto the black or anything, as I'm applying a base coat of my primary colours, my main colours, so that it's easy enough to touch back up should I make a mistake and touch into somewhere else. Whereas if I was to take a area to completion and then get a colour from another section onto it, then it's a lot more fiddly to touch up a completed area than it is to touch up an area that's just covered with a base paint. So there we are, that's the stage we're at so far. Alright, so I'm now going to take some Sotek green and I'm going to apply this all over the areas that we did with the Macragge blue. The only areas that I don't quite get to are those behind the leg. They are in a little bit too hard to reach area, but as this is just aiming for tabletop quality, a little bit over battle ready, I'm not too bothered about the back areas that you can't see. So I'm just applying this again over all of the blue areas, and what I'm trying to do is leave a very thin line of that Macragge blue just along any joins, any deep creases and things like that. So you can see here, as the feet step down a plate, I'm painting just along the edge of the plate up to just before it touches the plate above it, and that leaves just a very thin line of the Macragge blue, which gives an immediate shadow effect there. So again, painting the shoulder pad here and the whole of the lower body area. And then up onto the handle and the hand here. And then same with the head and the collar area. So again, just making sure I get into those all those little areas, but not too worried about the smallest areas that I can't quite get the brush to. Next I'm going to take some Athonian camo shade, and this is going to wash down all of the blue Sotek green. To that I'm going to add some Ethermatic blue at a 2:1 ratio of the Ethermatic blue to the Athonian camo shade, and then that gives us a slightly more turquoise shade rather than the blue. And next some Caribou Crimson, and I don't mind that the previous wash hasn't dried, as I'm not going to be touching that. So this is using the medium shade brush. I'm just applying it to all of the red areas, making sure that I get it down into those creases, and just smoothing it out with a little bit of water over some of those flatter areas. So it's just a damp brush just to make sure that it all goes in nice and smooth. And then along here just some Nuln Oil over the pauldrons there, just to get down into the creases around the edge of the pauldron and around the symbol there. Okay, so once those washes have dried, you should have something that looks like this. You can see that it's darkened up those recesses nicely. And now I'm going to take some Evil Sun's Scarlet and a medium dry brush. Now, obviously you can use any dry brush for this. I just happen to have this one at hand. So as always with dry brushing, I apply the red, covering half the bristles, and then get the majority of it off. As I'm not going for a complete just the top edges on this, I don't mind having a little bit of paint on there. You can see just testing it on the edge of the base there, and yeah, barely anything on there. So all I'm doing is just pulling and brushing right across the robes. I want to get that obviously to pick up on all those raised edges, but to also lay down a thin bed of colour on the flat areas as well, just so we got that lighter tone on those large flat areas. Right, so I applied a little bit more of the paint on there. The brush was coming off too dry, it wasn't applying as much paint as I wanted to those flatter areas. And again, just so I could get it on those flat areas and get a nice bed of paint on there. Now this does leave that slightly chalky effect, but it's not a problem. What I tend to do is just go in with a slightly damp brush afterwards and just smooth those areas out, maybe even with a thin glaze of the same red, just to smooth those flat areas and blend that chalky effect or chalky edges down into something a little bit smoother. So you can see here I'm just applying some of the that red, the Evil Sun's red, to the tabard there, which obviously too small an area to get at with the dry brush. So you can see there I was just applying the glaze to my nail just to check how thin it was, just so I can go back over and just thin out some of these areas and smooth them out. Okay, so next up I'm taking some Abaddon black and just neatening up all those black areas along the tabard and that would have been caught by some of the dry brushing. The blue areas, the Sotek green areas, they didn't catch anything. It was just mainly the front of the tabard, so just neatening a few areas up. Right, now I'm going to take some some Wild Rider Red, and I'm going to mix this slightly with the Evil Sun Scarlet, just as I feel that it was a little bit too on the orange side and I wanted something a little bit more red, and slightly thinned down. And then just with the side of the brush, I'm just picking off the highest points and the edges, just for a final highlight on this red area. And this will actually bring the red to completion. The reason I did the red area first is because it was using the large dry brush. I could have done it all by hand with glazes. It would have taken longer. It would have had a smoother effect. But as we're just aiming for a battle ready, you know, get it ready for the tabletop, it didn't matter too much. So now I've got some Ahriman blue, and I'm literally just picking off highlights on the washed over Sotek green here. The wash was applied in such a way that it only took into the darkest areas, and made it possible for us to skip a touch-up stage and just go in with some highlights with this colour here. So again, just following the armour panels, a little bit down the thigh there for a highlight. And now I'm going to mix in a small amount of white scar to that, just as a final extreme highlight, just on some of the sharpest of edges. So just a small bit across the top of the knee, the step down for the toes there, and just a few areas on the handle there. Also picking off a highlight on the helmet and the neck area, a little bit on the elbow and that there. As you can see, I'm just picking off, like I say, the most sharpest of edges. Okay, now with that same white scar, I'm just neatening up the pauldron here. So I'm just going all over the pauldron. Again, this is thinned down, so it will take a couple of layers, but I'm leaving just the very outer edge just before it touches the black, the rim there, so that when that gold's applied, there'll still be a slight bit of the grey on the outside edge of the white pauldrons, and then again just over the crystal there, just to get that ready for a later stage. Right, so now I'm taking some Eshin Grey, and I'm going to use this for my black highlights or midtones. So this is thinned down, and this will take a couple of passes, but I'm doing just on the flat edge there, and then just again, same with all highlights really, it's just a case of picking out those outer edges, using thinned down paints to get a smooth transition from the dark to the mid-tone, and then obviously you'll do the same from mid to light, and just picking out where I think the light would hit most on these areas, and then just building up with a couple of layers. Now, I have to say, I think this is probably my most favourite colour scheme so far. I do love the look of the turquoise with the black and the red. It really stands out. So I do think I'm going to convert or change the scheme of my army to match in with this. So again, you can see the second layer going on there. Right, so now I'm going to mix in a small amount of Dawnstone to some of that grey, just to dull it down a bit, and then use this just as an extreme highlight. Again, this is thinned down, so it may take a couple of passes, but I'm just picking off the edges of the cloth and some of the armour and that there. and unfortunately my camera decided to lose the remaining footage for the end of this piece, but to be honest guys, you're not missing too much. It's just the gold trim on the edge of the pauldron and the halo, and that was done with Retributor armour and then a wash of Reikland Flesh Shade gloss. Once that dried, I just went back over some of the higher points with the Retributor armour, and that was that done. And then for the silver places, so the head of the hammer and the pendant down the front, that was just done over with some lead belcher and then some Nuln oil. And once that dried, a dry brush of lead belcher and then a highlight of iron breaker and an extreme highlight of Stormhost silver. And then the only other piece left was the gem piece that they carry around with them. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but that was just done with some Aethermatic blue over the top, just to give it a bit of a blue tone to it. Alright, so again, apologies for that, but here's a couple of photos of front and back of the finished model, along with the custom made base, as shown in a previous tutorial that I'll put up in the cards in the corner here. I do hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit that thumbs up and hit that subscribe button and that bell button so that you get the notifications of when new videos are uploaded. Obviously with Mortal Realms Monday, that is every Monday. Apart from the next few weeks, we will only be doing 2 or bi-weekly episodes, so every other week, as that is how the issues are running from Hatchet Parkworks at the minute. But until next time, take it easy guys, and get painting those minis.